Hello there, Richie Stormtrooper here again. I am pressing on with my Stormtrooper build, and today we're looking at three separate parts. We're only really going to do some trimming. We're looking at the entire back section, the upper back, kidney plate that comes in between that, and the butt plate. In our last video we looked at the chest and the abdomen stroke cod piece and looked at a few important things about trimming out what we had to bear in mind, leaving the allowance, etc, etc. These parts are very similar. A lot of the same rules apply because of the nature of the strapping system. If you haven't seen the video on trimming the chest and the abdomen stroke cod piece, go back and watch that now. That's going to be very useful too. We looked at things like this, like leaving this return edge for these screws for our strapping brackets, and the same thing is going to apply here also. We will look at it more in depth when we actually get around to assembling the armour and all the strapping, but these parts of course are going to be assembled like that, all flush, with these areas, these return edges being the most important. We're going to need a good sized return edge here and here at the bottom and at the top of the butt plate, because that's where we're going to fit our screwed in strapping brackets. I'm going to start with the butt plate, start at the bottom and work up. On the other edges, the edges that are not too critical, it's a similar story. We're looking at, look at your own references, the original references, reference of the original suits, but we're looking at a smaller return edge, not very much at all, 3, 4, possibly 5 millimeters, certainly not much more, all the way around. In this area that goes underneath between your legs, it's going to be subjected to lots of movement and bending, so I find that too much return edge anyway would just make it more susceptible to cracking. This piece is susceptible to some cracking, but it can be repaired. I will probably do a video on running repairs at some stage, but let's get this thing built first of all. And I'm just penciling in the trim lines. On the RS Prop Masters kit there is indeed a trim line in the mould here telling you exactly where to cut that off at the bottom. It's quite practical. On this top edge then, where we want to keep it wide, it's the same kind of story as the chest and the cod piece. We go from minimal return edge quite quickly to pretty much as much as you can, maybe just before this lip turns upwards. You pretty much make use of all of that. Let your pencil just get in the natural valley there. There's a natural kind of border just before it hits the lip that turns upwards where it come off the molds. You can really make use of all of that width because you're going to need to put your screws in there. When you come round to doing this kidney plate, this is going to sit here, as the name suggests, here at the back of your kidneys. You will want two major return edges at the top and bottom. These little recesses are the lower part, they go on the bottom. I'm going to join flush like that. On these sides we want pretty much no return edge whatsoever. It does here go round, we do have a return edge off the mould, but we're going to trim that right to the edge. That's pretty much flat. Just in these recesses we open up to our smaller return edge around here to then taper out into our large return edge. We're probably going to have to take off more than, there's a lot of plastic on this piece, on the RS Prop Masters suit. There are lines in the mould that suggest that that's where the little dents here, certainly on this side, that suggest that's where the originals were trimmed to. But you know, anything up to, you can probably get away with as little as 7 millimeters, but 10 millimeters is good. Eyeball it, look at the original references, just make sure you've got enough room to put in your screws at the end. What I mean by that is, as you can see, this is the top edge of my kidney plate on the finished suit. We have 6 screws in there, 2, 4, 6, and with the original strapping, these held in the strapping brackets. This is a kind of hybrid version. I don't have the strapping brackets in there. I've gone for a more practical modern strapping system with snaps, but we still want to replicate the external appearance of the suit with the screws, so we leave that return edge on there. When it comes to trimming the upper back part with this kind of 011 logo, as some people refer to it as, like a cog, isn't it, and a kind of 2 pieces of wood and placed in some mould, presumably for some decoration at the back. Same kind of thing, round the neck, minimal return edge, around the sides, your 3-4 millimeters, like whatever, and then at the bottom leave it thick enough for the screws. Definitely recommend to you checking out the video that RS Propmasters published on trimming this. I'll try and dig out a link for you, because their suit had some very specific trim lines here on the sides. Very interesting. Rob goes into detail about exactly how the the back piece was trimmed on the original suit. I'm not going to go for an exact replica of their suit. They did. They have the original suit there, so why not copy it and do a direct replica? Very cool. I'm going to do something just based on a rough average look of how I think that most of the Stormtroopers looked. Right then, I've got my parts trimmed and sanded down. I'm full of ABS dust once again. I'll let you have a quick look at that then. As I say, we've got a medium, average, little bit of return edge on the side. We've got a thick return edge in places like that for the screws. One little peculiarity about the RS Propmasters suit is that this part of the butt plate is very, very flat. If we compare that to the Trooper Master suit that I've got in this hand, my right hand, your left as you're looking at it, you see this is probably what the suits looked like when they were brand new and pristine. And this is, of course, one of the symptoms of this being moulded off an original suit that's obviously not in original perfect condition. If that bothers you at all, you can be very careful with this. But be very careful with this. Heat this gently with a hairdryer and kind of bend it, get the curve back into it. I find that it's not necessary. This, as you can see here, there are 2 press studs on here. Later on, we're going to be connecting this to the front cod piece with some elastic, and when you're suited up, I find that just pulls into shape. It's very flexible. But you can try and add the curve if you want with a little gentle heating. Don't go overboard, don't melt your armour so that it's no longer usable. It's also a little bit of a feature here. This part of the RS Propmasters suit, I find these areas originally were probably a little bit more curved. It's just down to the wear and tear of the original suit, that Simon's original suit. It's a little bit flatter now. You can mould that to your taste if you want to. I repeat, very gently heat it and bend it into place. It doesn't make a great difference. When you're suited up, it looks great anyway, and I'm going to keep this as a replica for display of the original suit. So maybe go for the angle that it's what a suit would look like nowadays as well. I'll leave you with a few reference shots and a few reference photos from the Lucas archives and a few screenshots maybe, so you can have a look. If you want to download all of those, you can find them all at the forum, First Imperial Stormtrooper Detachment. The link is down below in the description, so you can have a look at the photos yourself. Hopefully these shots will give you a quick idea of what you're looking for. Good luck with that and have fun. I will see you in another tutorial video. I'm not exactly sure how we're going to proceed from here. We're certainly getting very close to final assembly and getting down to those little parts. I'll probably move on to the shoulder belts for the next one. But whatever it is, I'll see you next week, probably in the next video. Take care.